Hello and welcome specially to the Engineer Construction Lecture Hall, always a platform where you get insightful content as regards to construction. Alright, so today we are going to look at a very important topic. It is stages in concrete, stages in concrete works. Stages in concrete works. That's the topic for today. Now, as you know, concrete is a very important material. It's indispensable when it has to do with construction. All right. So we know that concrete is a combination or is a composition of your cement, your sand, okay, plus your sand, plus your aggregate. That is coarse aggregate. Alright, coarse aggregate plus water, okay, plus water. Now these are what makes up the concrete, okay, equal to concrete, okay. Now I want you to understand that all of these materials have their various attributes. Alright, so it's important for us to understand the various attributes of these materials to be able to harmoniously, bring them together to form concrete. And not just forming concrete alone, getting a target strength of concrete. Alright, so this is a very sensitive and painstaking activity, okay, that requires attention. Alright, which in most cases are usually neglected aside. But I want you to understand that our emphasis today is on the stages in concrete works. So the first stage in concrete work is what we refer to as batching. Okay, batching. So batching is basically the process of proportioning of these materials. Okay, the proportioning, I mean, trying to measure these materials with respect to a specific volume or a specific weight. All right, so under batching, we can batch by volume. Okay, we can batch by volume, we can batch by weight. Okay, we can batch by weight. Now, when you're batching by volume, that makes it a volumetric process of batching. All right. So what this means now is that you have to have a defined volume. Okay, a defined volume. What I mean, a container that you know the length, you know the width. Okay, you know the depth. Okay, that is what I mean. For example, a box. You have a box, okay, in this manner. Okay, you have a box. All right. Now this box has length, it has width, it has height. All right. So with this now, you have to define this. Know the volume. All right. So knowing that volume now, you now use it to do the measurement of these materials. All right, then in some cases, you can use your head pan. All right, you can use your head pan. You can use your head pan. You can use your head pan. Now, this your head pan also have a defined volume. Now, when you're using your head pan, you're doing your batching by volume. So understand that when you're using head pan, your batching is done by volume. All right, then. For weight now, it means that you need a weighing balance. Okay, you need a weighing balance. Okay, you need a weighing balance to measure all of these materials. So if you're doing, for example, definitely this will be governed by a ratio. All right, you have 1 for cement, maybe 1.5 for sand, maybe 3 for aggregate. So what it simply means is that you're doing by weight, you have to get the weight of cement. Then that weight of cement, you get the 1.5 weight of the sand. Then you get the 3 weight of aggregate. That will now give you based on that ratio. So when you do that by weighing balance, you're doing your batching by weight. So basically, batching is trying to measure all of these materials based on their ratios. Okay, it's either by volume or by weight, as the case may be. But by weight is usually regarded as the most precise means or process of batching, because it will give you a definite measurement. But by volume, it means that there will be some form of discrepancies, because you cannot determine the quantity that fills this heptan in subsequent measurement. So definitely there will be additional, there will be reduction and all. So the accuracy will not be that much there. All right. So the first stage is batching. All right. So batching now also has to do with bringing these materials together, excluding water. Okay, that is the dry mix. Dry mix involves these 3 materials. Okay, it involves these 3 materials. Dry mix. So batching is done in the dry mix stage. All right. So the next stage is mixing. Okay, the next stage is mixing. Now mixing now has to do with the introduction of water, all right, which is also a part of concrete. So the introduction of water will bring about the mixing, all right, and this mixing also, there is a reaction that takes place, all right, and that is called hydration. All right, hydration kickstarts immediately when water is being introduced in the dry mix. That is when the process of hydration will commence. So mixing now involves water. Okay, so after your mixing, and this mixing, if you're using your concrete mixer, it means that is when the revolution will commence. Okay, that is when water is introduced, usually to be in motion, even when the dry mix are there, but depends on how the loading pattern is. Okay, so basically understand that mixing is when water has been added to these 3 materials. That is when the mixing takes place. All right, so the next is transportation. Okay, transportation. Now this transportation has to do with moving this concrete from the point where it is being mixed to the point where it is being needed. That is the mixing bay. From the mixing bay to the designated point. Okay, to the designated point. Now this mixing bay is usually where the mixing is done. Okay, where the concrete mixer is situated and the materials are. Okay, and that area is the mixing bay. All right, so transportation is done when the mixing is completed, and the concrete will be sent or transported, it will be transported or conveyed to the point where that concrete is needed. So that is the designated point. So the process of moving it from the point of the mixing bay to the designated point is what we term as transportation. Okay, so it depends on the means of transport. You can use your wheelbarrow, and some other means to, transport the concrete. All right, so now once you have transported it, the next is placement. Okay, placement or placing / pouring. Okay, depending on the content, they all mean the same. So when you get to the designated point, you now have to, place the concrete. All right, you have to place the concrete with the wheelbarrow. You have to, offload the concrete based at that designated point. You offload it. All right. If it is a hose, you can now position your hose at that designated point to discharge the concrete, depending on the means of transportation. But for placement now, it means that the concrete now is being deposited at the point where it is needed. So when it is done in that manner, is what we refer to as placement, pouring or placing. Now understand that the height of pouring of concrete also is very, very important, because you know concrete is a mixture of various materials as shown above. Now these materials are expected to maintain homogeneity. These materials are expected to maintain oneness even at the point of placing, because most times you see that during the placing the height of pouring might not be good enough. You will see that concrete, there will be for some form of segregation. You will see the bigger stones dissociating from the concrete mass, and when that happens, you see that it will hamper the strength of that concrete. So it is very important that during placement we observe the way we place our concrete, we pour our concrete. All right. So another stage apart from, you know, once we have placed our concrete, the next is vibration. Okay, vibration slash compaction. Okay, so now these they both means the same thing, but it is based on the various position where the concrete is placed that will determine either vibration or compaction. But basically the essence of both is to densify the concrete, and when you densify the concrete, it means that the compressive strength will also be increased. Okay, so that is why during compressive test there is need to get the mass of that cube, okay, to be able to, you know, compute for the density of that concrete, because the density is a function, is a very important function when you're talking about the strength of that concrete, because it is how compacted that concrete is that will translate to the strength of that concrete. All right, so vibration here, you can use what we refer to as poker vibrator. Okay, you can use poker vibrator, you know, to vibrate the concrete. Now this poker vibrator has a needle, all right, and that needle is what goes into the structural elements, okay, the formwork that contains the concrete. So the needle of the vibrator tends to, you know, get in contact to the reinforcement and infuse or kind of transmit some form of waves. Now that waves is what brings about the coming together, okay, of these concrete materials, you know, in order to get it densified. All right, so that is vibration. Then compaction is in a situation where if you don't adopt it, maybe in that situation you don't use vibrator, poker vibrator, maybe for example your slab, okay, that have the depth is not sufficient enough, okay, you can do compaction. You can use your rammer, okay, you can use your tapping rod, your tapping flute, okay, to do the compaction. You can use your rammer, you can use your tapper, as the case may be, depending on the area, the structural elements you're doing your concreting. That will determine either the use of poker vibrator or the use of rammer, okay, as the case may be. So after this, the next thing is curing, okay. After this is curing. So once you're done with this, you allow the concrete, you know, to be. So the concrete will get to the, you know, final setting time, and now start the hardening process will be in view, will be on course, okay. So in that period of, you know, the setting time, the final setting time hardening, okay, there is need to, you know, sprinkle water. You know, you have to introduce water, you know, to enhance the continuous hydration of the concrete, because at that stage the concrete only requires water, okay, so that it will help to continue that chemical reaction, okay, that was introduced initially by water. There should be that continuous process of hydration, because when the hydration continues, it means that it will bring about the gaining of strength, all right, because the key gaining of strength in our concrete is dependent on the hydration process. So water, the introduction of water constantly, all right, in that fresh place concrete, okay, that is when it is in the process of setting, all right, the setting period. When you introduce water, it will help to keep that concrete moist, and also for that chemical reaction to be continuous for the gaining of strength. All right, so that is curing for you. So curing is also a very important stage in concrete work, and usually it comes immediately after placement. Now this curing, you can do curing by sprinkling. You can do curing by sprinkling. You can use gunny bags, okay, gunny bags, or gunny slash jute bags, okay. You can use gunny or jute bags. You can do ponding, okay, you can do ponding. All right, now also I want you to understand that curing also helps to regulate the temperature, okay, because the concrete is expected to maintain certain temperature in order to enhance that gaining of strength. So the presence of water helps to regulate the temperature, okay, so it's very, very important. Now sprinkling means that you have to be pouring water, you know, frequently on that concrete. If it's a column, beam, slab, as the case may be, during that period of hardening and setting and hardening, there is need to introduce water, you know, constantly, so that that concrete will be able to access water for the continuous hydration of the concrete. Okay. Now the use of gunny bags is those bags, those thick bags, those hairy bags that, you know, locally they use to bag onions. Okay, you can use those bags, those brown bags, to wrap your column, okay, or to spread all over your slab, and also to wrap your beam, as the case may be, okay. And you now pour water on those bags. Now those bags, what it does is that it will absorb those water, it will absorb the water and keep the water for the concrete for a very long period of time, okay. So that one now will not require constant introduction of water, okay, rather it will be periodic. All right, so once you wrap it, you pour water. Maybe after some hours you can come back, pour water again to absorb the water, and, you know, it kind of store the water for the concrete. Then also it also shields the concrete element from the sun, okay, the effect of heat. All right, because when the heat is high, it will bring about cracks, okay, it will bring about cracks. So that gunny bag will protect the concrete from thermal, you know, changes. All right, then also the gunny bag will also prevent evaporation, because, you know, when this water is introduced, the water tends to evaporate, leaves the concrete. And when you have your gunny bag, the gunny bag will help to sustain and also limit that evaporation process that usually takes place. All right, so gunny bag, the use of gunny bag for curing is also very important. Then another process of curing is ponding. Ponding is, for example, you have a slab, okay, you have a slab in this manner, okay, you have concreted this slab. Now during that period of hardening, all right, you can now get sand, okay, and form a fence around this slab, okay. You form a wall with the sand around, okay, leaving this middle open, okay. So what you now do is that you now pour water at the center here. You pour water, so quite some number of water, and also ensure that the water is not overflow. It doesn't overflow, that it will not erode, okay. So you just pour it to a certain level, all right. So you allow that water to remain there, so the water will remain there, and the concrete will take that water. All right, so you observe it after a while, you see that the water have dropped, so you can top it up. Okay, so this is how you undergo, you do your ponding. So ponding is also a process, is a curing process as well. All right, so these are the stages in our concrete work. So if there are questions, you can also get it across. So I'm going to stop here for today. Thank you very much for your time and have a beautiful day. Bye.